Welcome to this forum for Tacoma School District Number 10, Positions 2, 3, 4, and 5. I'm Liz Kernitz-Thurlow of the League of Women Voters of Tacoma-Pierce County, and I'll be moderating. Thanks to our candidates and to TV Tacoma. The primary election is Tuesday, August 3rd. You must place your ballot in a drop box or get it postmarked by 8 p.m. of that evening. Many local elections will be on that ballot. What won't be there is any of these, because there are only one or two candidates for each seat, so they will all move automatically to the general election, which will be on November 2nd. But we interview them now, so you can start to get to know them and what they believe in. This is 80% of the school board seats, so this is important. The candidates for position 2 are Enrique Leon and Sarah Hendricks. Sarah Hendricks declined to attend, but Enrique Leon is here. For position 3, an unexpired term, Corey Strozier is the candidate. For position 4, Chelsea McElroy is the candidate. And for position 5, the candidates are Elizabeth Bonbright and Bill Hannawalt. Welcome to all of you. Thank you for being here. They have agreed to our ground rules, which, among other things, say that they will not discuss each other in their answers. Do you all agree? You can nod. Okay, thank you. Candidates have up to 2 minutes for opening statements, normally 1 minute to answer a question, and 1 minute for closing statements. Our timekeeper is Terry Baker. She will signal you with 1 minute, 30 seconds, 15 seconds, and when it's time to stop. In ballot and position order, Enrique Leon will give the first opening statement. After that, the order will rotate with each question. Enrique Leon, your opening statement, please.
So I am running for position 2, and I have been on the school board for the past 3 years. I'm excited to continue serving our community and have several issues that are higher on my platform, but I realize there are multiple issues we deal with in education. So some of the ones that I'm really excited to continue working on are the health and wellness of our students and our staff. That includes physical and mental health. Second would be to make sure that we retain and continue to recruit the highest caliber staff to work in our district. That includes making sure we support them with training, proper wages, increase the wages whenever possible, and benefits also. And the third is academic success and continuing to improve upon the good work that Tacoma Schools has been doing for many years now, an excellent academic graduation rate of 89%, but also that doesn't tell you everything about education. Test scores don't also tell you everything you need to know. So it's important to make sure we continue to focus on social emotional learning curriculum, which we've expanded to all the schools now in order to have a safe environment mentally so kids can learn academics. So when we do this, we have kids that succeed, graduate, and go on to institutions after high school. They don't have to be colleges. They can be anything that will provide them with really the great, a stable form of livelihoods. That could be technical colleges, it could be the military, a multitude of things. Regarding health and wellness, it's important that we continue to support our teachers more, nursing, physical, along with counseling and school-based health centers, which we've had in Oakland and want to expand to other parts of the district. So my time is almost out, and I'll take your questions as they come. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Corey Strozier.
Hey, thanks. My name is Corey Strozier. I'm running to retain my seat in position 3 that I've been sitting in, and I was appointed to about 8 months ago now. It's truly an opportunity for me. I'm running for the simple fact that, one, because I believe I have a great perspective to offer, but two, because there hasn't really been Black male representation on our school board in almost 30 years, right? Nearly 15% of our district demographics are that of Black students, and another 15% is that of students of mixed race. So I say this all the time. I've said it in articles and things of that nature, but having a seat at a table is great, but a plate and a meal and utensils is another story, right? An opportunity to have a voice is necessary. So it's huge to be able to have the opportunity to work together to make policy decisions that'll better our experience for our young people, right? That's why I serve. Not to mention a young man who looks like me that is also interested in one day running for public office, right? It seems like a long shot, but when they look up and see folks like me, as I looked up and I saw folks like Willie Stewart, that they will be encouraged to take that step. I have a couple priorities that I like to focus on, especially since I guess you have to put out priorities when you're running a campaign. But obviously, COVID-19 recovery efforts is one of my priorities. This is going to continue for quite some time, right? Just because we are lifting restrictions and things of that nature doesn't mean that COVID is over and that folks are where they need to be. Increasing transparency, implementing robust financial literacy programs in our schools, starting possibly at the middle school level. And then finally, continuing the work that will close access, opportunity, and achievement gaps in our district. So I've got 15 seconds and I'm passing it back to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Chelsea McElroy, your opening statement, please.
Good morning, and thank you for having me. As you can tell in my background, I am currently at our preschool. My mom and me, we own a preschool together, and I've been having a great time being a child and family advocate for the past 16 years. Originally, I had no intention of running or serving. I love being someone behind the scenes. I'm an active member of my union, SEIU 1925, which is the Family Childcare Chapter. And what I've seen as I've been advocating for family and children for the past, again, 16 years, has been a lack of transparency, inclusion, and accessibility. Having served at Bernie Elementary School, the deaf and hard of hearing community has been reaching out about ASL interpretation, and the Vietnamese community at Bose Elementary School, where I taught, they were asking about translation services at school board meetings and how we can get our parents and families more involved. I'm a community program provider for Tacoma Public Schools, partner through my program Vision Step team, and I won a gold star from all these lovely people who are already on the board. So I just love doing the work, and I'm someone who really wants to drive home the fact that anybody in our community who is vested in the whole child should be involved in the whole process of educating our children. Our before and after school care community is not being included in a really tangible way, but through partnerships like Green Trike and OSPI, we have seen, or OSTI, I'm sorry, out of school time, intermediaries, we have seen that impact and how we can really help children, how we can really advocate for families, and how we can really touch the whole child. So I think it's important to have people on the board who not only live in the community, serve the community, are from the community, and care about the children who are going to these schools. So I am happy to be a low-income, low-wage worker serving on our board right alongside all the single mothers I've been linking arms with for the past decade. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Elizabeth Bondbright.
Thank you. I am Elizabeth Bondbright, and I'm currently the Vice President of the Tacoma School Board. But for the past 30 years, I've lived in Tacoma and dedicated my career to building an affordable, accessible, high-quality childcare and early learning and after-school care system in Washington State and across the nation. 22 years of that was as Executive Director of the Child Care Aware of Washington, which is Washington State's child care resource and referral system. I see in our community as a seamless pathway for all to prosperity and success. And while this pathway will be different for each individual, I believe that Tacoma Public Schools can provide every single student with a solid academic and social emotional foundation and opportunities to find her, his, or their passion, and also individualized post-high school opportunities, preparation, whether it's college or career. I was appointed to the Tacoma School Board in November of 2019 and have served now for 20 months, including through a worldwide COVID pandemic and anti-racist social unrest. My commitment to the work has broadened, deepened, and strengthened. I'm now seeking to retain my seat so I can continue to move the needle on critical equity policy work in our community and ensure that all children in our district have access to high-quality education. My priorities beyond the core fiduciary responsibilities of being a school board member include effectively addressing the growing mental health crisis among our students and staff, the dismantling systemic racism and advancing racial equity, providing safe educational environments for all of our students, by offering them compelling curriculum integrated in the whole child enrichment, and by supporting highly trained, dedicated educators who inspire, empower, and teach our children how to think, how to question, how to solve problems, and most importantly, how to dream. I'm passionate about this work, and I would appreciate your vote.
Thank you. Bill Hannawalt.
Yes, thank you for having me today. Thank you to the League of Women Voters and TV Tacoma for hosting us. I've been a resident of Tacoma now for 25 years, have spent over 20 years in the Hilltop community as a resident and working on the ground for 15 years as the initial executive director of Peace Community Center, an organization that provides in-school, after-school, and summer programming for Hilltop children and families. Developed those programs from the ground up. We worked with local public schools like Stanley and Bryant and Jason Lee and McCarver, and local high schools as well. We built partnerships. We hired teachers to teach summer courses. In that time, I got to know families and students on the ground. I understood the challenges that many face in navigating our school system. I've seen how education can be a pathway to opportunity. I've also seen the many obstacles our students and families can face. And that's why I'm running for school board. It's that practical on the ground experience and those relationships that I'll take with me if fortunate enough to be elected. I have 3 priorities as well. My first is centering those families, all families in Tacoma Public Schools, in the education of their students. We have to build stronger partnerships with families. We've done a wonderful job of building partnerships with organizations, and now we need to take that same commitment to building partnerships with families who love their kids and know their kids better than anyone. The second is we need to focus on preparing students for success after high school. Whatever that pathway is, our students need to be ready. Rising graduation rates are awesome, they're great, and we need to make sure that that high school diploma means that they're ready for that next step. And lastly, I think transparency is critical at the board level, and I'll work to increase that as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you all. Now we move to questions. We have so many things to ask that your answering time will never be long enough. 1 minute. Corey Strozier will answer the first question first, and then we'll go around. How do you envision helping homeless students to succeed and graduate? What programs and supports should we have to help them succeed, and how will you be involved?
Great question. So let's just start by saying that our homeless population, our houseless young students, are just as important as all of our other folks. And we need to ensure that we are providing programs and assistance necessary to make sure that they are taken care of first, right? If you have nowhere to live, how can you focus on your educational responsibilities? If you have nothing to eat, how can you show up? If you slept on the bench, how can you focus in your classroom? So programs like McKinney-Vento, we really structure those around ensuring that students get what they need. I think it's important to ensure that we increase that communication so that folks know that there are things available for them, right? It's great to have programs out, but if we are not getting that message to the young people so that they can take advantage, then we're not doing them any good service. So how can I be involved? By ensuring that we get these messages out when opportunities are available so the students can take advantage of them. I just saw that stop, and I got only a corner of that stop over there. So I saw it. Thank you.
Thank you. Chelsea McElroy.
Partnerships are key. Working in childcare for the past decade or more, I've seen how McKinney-Vento partnerships really work with that actual whole child. The school busing system will bus them to and from a childcare provider of their choice, and that does provide that continuity of care so that the child is safe before school, after school, and during school hours. So I think strengthening our bonds within the community, knowing who are these partners within our community who will house these children before and after school time, because as we know, the school day is only that long. So I think strengthening partners in the community who will be caring for these children outside of our school hours will really impact our McKinney-Vento children.
Thank you. Elizabeth Von Bright.
Well, like others have said, partnerships are the central answer, and it takes a village to raise every child. And one of the things that we have done well at Tacoma Public Schools is partner, especially around homeless families and homeless children, McKinney-Vento. We use our McKinney-Vento money very strategically. And a good example is when during the COVID situation, we had kids when it was remote learning from home. But if you don't have a home, it's very difficult to stay engaged in your learning. So we partnered with Metro Parks Tacoma and the City of Tacoma and Tacoma Housing Authority. And we made sure the kids had a place to go where they could be all day in a safe environment with technology and Wi-Fi and food. And so those are the kinds of things we will continue to do, and to really meet families and children where they are and address individually as the needs as they are, but to partner with others in the community to make sure that we're aligned in our support. So it's easy for them, easy access, and consistent care.
Thank you. Bill Hennewalt.
Yeah, this is an incredibly important issue. Certainly we're seeing homelessness right up close and personal, but we also know that students experience homelessness in a lot of different ways. Homelessness is when you're surfing couches, when you're sleeping at friends, when it just looks different. It's not, and it affects way more students than I think one might think. And so as other folks have shared, investment in McKinney-Vento and in staff there is critical. It takes relationships and support. Partnerships are key, as been mentioned, but you need connectors. Navigating all the resources in our community can be impossible for families, especially who are struggling with housing or other needs. And so creating partnerships that are linked through people and relationships and support is critical, whether that's with Tacoma Housing Authority, after school, or other programs.
Thank you. Enrique Leon.
Thank you. A really important question, as most everyone understands and has mentioned. So some work that I've done on this and will continue to do around advocating for really the best education for these students. And it's not just our unsheltered students that need this, it's really all of our students. So counselors, expanding counselors whenever possible, social workers provide security, and they are those connectors. We've heard about connectors. So it's not just security guards or uniformed officers that do those things. It's social workers that do those things. Our partnerships with Metro Parks, Peace Center, Tacoma Housing Authority. I've worked towards getting breakfast before the bell and lunch, and we're expanding that. We'd like to expand that to all students, really, because nutrition is a really big part of this. And then the school-based health center, which I mentioned earlier, we help a lot of students that are unsheltered. And I've done also in my medical work, I take care of unsheltered folks and patients in my office and in local neighborhood health center. So I understand this problem intimately. Thank you.
Thank you. Chelsea McElroy will answer the next question first. Is there an academic gap for BIPOC students? If so, what do you support to close it, specifically for Latinx and others for whom English is not the first language?
Honestly, I love the question. It answers itself. Yes, there is a gap in our education. I think it goes to resource distribution. As a teacher who taught in East Side schools and as a student who attended North End schools, there's a disparity in who gets what and how it is distributed within the school district. I think that as we analyze our budget and as we decide who's going where, who's getting what, we really need to actually start touring these schools and see who already has enough and who is barely holding on. So as someone who worked in the district, I have seen it firsthand. As a student who attended the district, we need to be analyzing our budget, and that's how we'll end this gap. Resources will end the gap of education in Tacoma. Thank you.
Thank you. Elizabeth Von Bright.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a gap. And the gap is not just, it's the academic gap, but it's also social emotional access to all the supports that make the family and help the family move past poverty and address the other issues that they're grappling with. And I think one of the components of Tacoma Public Schools that we have the whole child approach, which means that we do look at the whole child, not just their academics, but the other components as well. And resources are absolutely critical. But, one of the best ways to address this is to actually make sure that every family knows what resources are available and then be working together with partners and community for the other supports, the mental health supports, and to change and deal with equity throughout the whole system by, community wealth building and the other pieces that we have partners with. But absolutely, every child in Tacoma Public Schools has academic access, but whether or not they can complete that has other factors involved, which we also have to take in mind.
Thank you. Bill Hennewalt.
Yeah, there's certainly a gap. There's not a gap in ability. There's not a gap in talent, but there is a gap. I think it's two places. It's in opportunity and it's in resource. And so we have to address both of those. But I think it's really critical that we start at a different point, that we start by listening, right? We don't have the answers. I don't have the answers. But our families and our communities that are impacted, they do, right? And so I think what's critical in this is that we take the time to go to communities and listen and engage and trust students and families that they know their circumstances and the challenges they face and the resources and opportunities they need to move forward. And so I would start there and then build solutions from students and families themselves. Thank you.
Thank you. Enrique Leon.
Thank you. Yes, we all agree there is a gap. I agree also. And the things that we can do from the school board perspective really are multifaceted. So equity, we've heard, is really key to this, not just what some schools have access to, but really we need to make sure that all of them that are not either performing / those kids that aren't being able to access those resources have a different way to access them. I come from immigrants from Peru. I was an English language learner. I know this issue and this problem intimately myself. I think that some things we've done and it will continue to do are budgeting by priority. We take the input from the community when we make our budget. Listening sessions where we listen to parents and students, continue to expand upon those. We want families to join the committees, and student voice is critical. We want more student voice. I'd like to expand our membership of students on the board if possible, and also the family voice in these committees. So we need families to join us. Thank you.
Thank you. Corey Strozier.
I don't think I can be more clear than what everyone else has already mentioned, but I'm going to say absolutely there's a gap. Absolutely, we have so much work to do. I think it's important that we continue to elevate the work of the Whole Child Initiative, bring in the explanation of the whole educator approach. And I think that it's important as a board that we really use our influence to ensure that our district is recruiting instructors and teachers that reflect the student body and that understand the issues of the young people that we are trying to elevate, so that we can ensure that students are felt like their needs are being met. Right. That's the first step for me. And then also like explaining the benefits of extended learning opportunities. Everybody doesn't get stuff on the first time. Right. So we need to ensure that we have those opportunities and access available for the young people who are maybe falling a little bit behind, so that they can take advantage and then elevate to the next level. So that's how I feel about that.
Thank you.
Right on time.
Elizabeth Bonbright will answer the next question first. Critical race theory is a phrase which is appearing everywhere now. It really means teaching American history accurately. Will you support the teaching of accurate American history? And if so, how will you support and ensure it in our schools?
Yeah, I don't want to get hung up in a title or a name. Critical race theory is a lightning rod, but you're right. It's the concept behind it, which is that to look at our history in a factual way and to make sure we're inclusive about the entirety of our history and not just a singular focus that may be on, Eurocentric or whatever entity is driving that. So yes, the curriculum we are committed to, and I believe we should be committed to, ensuring that every child at Tacoma Public Schools sees themselves in the history they're learning and their history and their connectivity to their future is also connected to their past. And if they don't see themselves in the history that's presented, they struggle to find themselves or where they're going to be in the future. So again, it's more about being complete and honest about and truthful.
Bill Hannawalt.
Yeah, I appreciate the question. Honestly, people are using very different definitions for what critical race theory actually is. So I think first, when we have these conversations, we need to be on the same page about what we're actually talking about. But as you've defined it, I think certainly we need to, currently we teach history like it's kind of like a Swiss cheese, right? It has holes in it for things that we're uncomfortable talking about. We don't dive into the reality of the depth and systemic nature of racism in our country. And we need to teach it because it's factual, because it's informative, and because, unless we're willing to face what has really happened, how are we going to move forward? And the reality is our students experience this, they know it. And so I think it's critical that we teach history and other areas to its fullest.
Thank you. Enrique Leon.
Thank you. Yes, we need to teach accurate history, and really if those holes are present, talk about them and teach what's in there. As we mentioned, a lot of history has been written by quote unquote the victors of wars, who's been able to subjugate other people. We need to include the history of the people that didn't win the war or that were, under the control of other folks. So everybody understands how this systemic racism has continued to expand itself around the globe. It's not just America that has racism. So it's not just American history, I think we should teach in its entirety, but also world history in a evidence-based, factual manner. So thank you.
Thank you. Corey Strozier.
Try to think about saying this the right way. So we need to critical race theory or whatever you want to call it. We have to ensure that our educators have what they need to deliver curriculum that is culturally responsive and relevant and reflects the students that we serve, right? The reality is the culturally responsive classrooms motivate students to learn. For example, I can only speak for myself here in my own experience, but what I'll mention is Black history doesn't start with slave ships, okay? And it's important that if we have African-American students in our classrooms, that we are teaching that history as intentionally as we have been teaching the history that's currently in the curriculum. So it's important that we standardize culturally responsive and culturally relevant curriculums in our classroom.
Thank you. Chelsea McElroy, glad you're back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I go off screen sometimes, you guys. I'm in a preschool. The kids are doing their thing. But I just want to start by saying critical race theory is taught in law school. So it's not taught at an elementary level, at a secondary level. It's not taught in high schools. It won't be taught to your children because critical race theory is law in practice. So just pointing that out before I even get started. But I do think that it is important to bring up the fact that our teachers need to be equipped, as Corey said, with the tools to create culturally responsive classrooms. Our teachers need to understand critical race theory in their hearts as they walk into our schools and are serving our children. All of our children in Tacoma will do better with a teacher who understands the diverse students that are in their classroom. So I think that's all we should be focusing on. And hopefully we can get to history after that.
Thank you. Thank you all. And, so you say if you don't need the full minute, don't take it. If we only ask 2 more questions, we're going to be running over time. So here goes. We're running over time. So Bill Hannawalt answers this one first. What actions do you recommend for the school board to take to help students catch up from any gaps in learning due to interruptions to instruction during the COVID-19 pandemic?
Yeah, that's a really important question. I think again, I think we need to center those decisions with families and students. There's lots of options. There's summer programming options that can support students catching up. There are additional taking additional coursework online in addition to classroom learning. There's extended day, as well as I think for some students who maybe have missed an entire year, the right decision might be to repeat that grade that they were in. But whatever the decision is, I think we need to provide students and families with multiple pathways to learning and catching up. We need to not make it a high stress, we're going to do this, and we're going to do this together, and we're going to support students and families to catch up and be, graduate on time and ready for that next step.
Thank you. Enrique Leon.
Thank you. Important question. I think it's also important to know that the whole globe has had this effect. So some more than others, not just in our community. So I would agree. Yes, Tacoma's already expanded their summer school offerings to try to incorporate more students. That's just one piece of the puzzle, expanding and continuing to strengthen our partnerships so that kids can learn. I just had one of my patients tell me that they're enrolled in a Tacoma Strong program for 3 weeks, 3 days a week. So they're going to be learning a lot there. And the online version of education has worked. It's not as good as in person, I think, for the majority of people, but we know how to do it now. So expanding online with our students, along with running START for the appropriate students that are in high school taking classes. That's the term for taking community college classes and other college classes while you're in high school. You can take those during summers and other off-cycle times. So many ways to do it, I think. Thanks.
Thank you. Corey Strozier.
Thank you. So I think it's important to lift up our current summer programming, right? We have summer programming starting in person, where all students who are enrolled in Tacoma Public Schools can take advantage of this option for free to catch up, right? If you're a little bit behind, lunches and breakfast will still be provided. You'll be working with certificated teachers to take care of you, to ensure that you get to be able to take the steps that you need in order to catch up in your learning. We know it's difficult. We know it's tough, but we have options in place for all of the students in our district that need to catch up. Edgenuity is a great option for young folks. And I think about our high school students who have had to work, who have had to take care of brother or sister because mom is at work. Edgenuity is a great platform to help students get caught up, especially when you have the assistance of a classroom teacher who have decided to step in during the summer school programs. So thank you.
Thank you. Chelsea McElroy.
Personally, I just wish that we lived in a world where we listened to families. Emma, I am on a call. And we listen to teachers. And teachers have said standardized tests don't work. Standardized tests do not cover the whole gamut of what a child is capable of doing. Emma, I hear you, but I'm talking to my friend at a preschool. Anyways, teachers are saying that the testing doesn't work for them. And families are saying the testing isn't proving my child's capabilities. So what if we stop testing them the way that teachers have asked for, the way that families have asked for, the way that student advocates have asked for, and that instead we actually pretended that we cared about children, we cared about their mental health, we cared about their education. So if we listen to all of the people who were involved in their education and they were the ones making the decision, we would stop putting our children on these rigorous test scopes and saying, well, this is what matters. And if we hit this mark, then you're capable or then you're worthy. So I think just listening to parents and children would matter.
Thank you. Elizabeth Bonbright.
Yeah, the COVID-19 pandemic really, I think, shined a light on something that existed way before, which is how children learn at different levels and through different mechanisms. And one of the interesting results of setting up Tacoma Online, which was the fully online school, is that we had a lot of students who actually did better online than they were doing in classrooms. And so this actually is kind of a I hope has us all thinking differently, as many have said, about how each individual child learns, and to make sure that we are meeting the needs of each child as far as learning recovery goes, for those that missed certain periods of their learning through the online if it didn't work for them. We need to empower our teachers with whatever tools they need to make sure that they have what each child needs to bring them along and help them reach their goals to meet the graduation standards.
Thank you. This will be the last question, and it's actually going to be about what Elizabeth was just talking about. I would love to ask questions about arts programs and curriculum and language and racism and everything else, but we're going to have to get rid of this pandemic first and get back to somewhat normal, while you're all doing, of course, all of that. So, Enrique Leon will answer this question first. Some students in Tacoma and in the country did well with remote learning. Others were able to take classes which were not taught in their schools. Do you think we need to keep remote learning as an option, and how should we do this? Go.
Yes, thank you. We do need to keep remote learning as an option. And there's probably several ways to do this. We don't have to reinvent wheels. We can learn from other districts that have had this before the pandemic. But I feel like if students want to do all their classes online or part of their classes online, I think those are all valid ways to learn. And some may be half their schedule may be online, half may not be. This is something that we're going to start hopefully to take a look at as a board and as a community. What works for teachers and staff, what works for students, and what is fair and what is beneficial for them. I think we can definitely go back to safe in-person learning. I want to throw that in there because we've taken really good precautions in the schools to do that even this year, and we're getting even better and learning more as we go. So we're going to be ready to have everybody back in person, but those that choose not to be will have robust options for them. Thank you.
Thank you. Corey Stroger.
Yeah, it's absolutely important that we have remote learning as an option, right? As I alluded to earlier, and as Elizabeth said, this pandemic has shown us something that's been present for a long time. And we have young people who are in charge of their families, right? We have young people who have to work to assist, like I was when I was younger, right? Having a remote option available proves a great pathway to ensure all of our students can be successful. As Dr. Leon said, hey, yeah, in school is absolutely important, right? For our social emotional, for students to build relationships, but having that online option covers our young people whose life isn't as peachy as everyone else's, right? Where it gets different, hey, life happens, you have a baby, or life happens, grandma gets sick, you have to do what you have to do to take care of, but you don't have to sacrifice your education. So Tacoma Online is going to be a great option for our young people who need to take advantage of it.
Thank you. Chelsea McElroy.
I think as Dr. Leon and Corey have mentioned, this has been a godsend to a lot of families. And I also think, well, first, we do need to keep the remote option. I 100% agree with that. I'm so happy that we have the Tacoma Online option for families. There's been a lot of families that withdrew from the school district prior to COVID due to other health concerns or any other reason. A lot of these homeschooling families got back into school when we had this remote and online option. And I think it's really important and critical for children that we do have social emotional learning. And I think through our online schooling options, our children have been able to get that. I've seen the one-on-one interactions between a homeschool child who's been homeschooled for 3 years, but is now in Tacoma Online and got to talk to a teacher about what they're learning and the difference that was making their education at home, as well as what they're getting from the school district. I think that educators' role is to educate. And if we can empower our families by giving them an option to be educated at home, why not? I love it.
Thank you. Elizabeth Von Bright.
Yeah, so remote learning is actually bigger than Tacoma Online and just extensive. It actually gets to the heart of what another benefit of the pandemic, if you can think of it that way, is that we were not a one-to-one computer school or district when the COVID started. We had 2,500 computers for 28,000 students, but very quickly we were able to capture get computers in the hands of every child, every student. And so remote learning actually is for Tacoma Online, for those that really want to do it that way and need to for health reasons or personal reasons or emotional reasons. But for remote learning will be a part of our learning, I think, forever, because that is how our world is working. And I think that each child having their own computer, like they have this summer, that the librarians are sending out, communications to students all summer to stimulate them to go out and explore on their computer. And this is what the future is about. And I think Tacoma Public Schools is thinking about its students first, and will be developing policies to make sure that is used appropriately.
Thank you. Bill Hannawalt.
Yeah, I agree with the others that certainly online learning should be an option and is needed. I think it's also, at least for our district, relatively new, and I think we need to really understand how much students are learning, the quality of education. We need to make sure that we don't unintentionally create a two-tiered education system where certain students have access to a certain level of education that happens in person and other students have access to a different level of education that happens online. Certainly not the intent, but we need to understand what's going on and how students are learning. So certainly supportive of it, and certainly supportive of the option that it gives families and flexibility for families and students that face different obstacles to in-person learning.
Thank you. Now it's time for closing statements. You each have up to 1 minute. In reverse ballot and position order, Bill Hannawalt will give the first closing statement.
Thanks again for our time today. Just want to reiterate that I've called Tacoma home since arriving here as a first-year student at the University of Puget Sound in 1997. My wife is a career-long public high school teacher at Lincoln High School now, and we're the proud parents of two daughters who currently attend Tacoma Public Schools. For the past 20 years, I've worked with community-based nonprofits that support educational goals and holistic development. There is nothing more impactful and important than our public schools in the daily lives of Tacoma children and families. I'm resolute in my conviction that while significant progress has been made in Tacoma, much more can and must be done to support learning and growth of students and to center the voices of all families in their children's education. I'm ready to bring my passion for our community and on-the-ground experience with Tacoma schools and families to the Tacoma School Board. Thank you.
Thank you. Elizabeth Bonbright.
Yes, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters and TV Tacoma and the moderators and timekeepers and for hosting us tonight and giving us an opportunity to share our views. I have also lived in Tacoma for over 30 years and raised my two daughters, both of whom were in the Tacoma public school system, kindergarten through 12th grade, and really was very active with their schooling. And when after they graduated, I now realized that it's changed a lot over the last few years. And when I've gotten re-involved in the time I spent pre-COVID, I was in classrooms, meeting with teachers, watching kids. And even during COVID, I was joining classes and really getting to see the trials that students have and what are the barriers in the educational system. And I'm deeply committed to continuing this journey of creating the most efficient and effective learning environment for each and every one of our students and their families.
Thank you. Chelsea McElroy.
Thank you all for having me today. Honestly, I really am just so grateful to be here. I mean, I'm in the midst of my daycare, so the kids are talking to me. But that's the reason why we're doing this, right? We're all getting into this work because we love children, we love fighting for families, and we care about our communities. I'm born here, raised here in Tacoma. I'm out of breath because I was running back and forth. They really wanted to talk to me and see you guys. But honestly, it matters. All these different types of voices matter on our school board. We need to have people who represent us, who think like us, who've lived in similar shoes and situations as ourselves. I was born and raised into a single parent home. Well, I was born into a family that was married. My father left when I was 4, and I grew up in a single parent home. I've seen how our single parent family structures have suffered and have not been included in the conversation. The times in which the school board meet have not been accessible to most of our Tacoma community and their families. It's not been accessible by our language barriers and other factors. So I think by having someone on the board who can push for things that matter to families, not just to teachers, not just to students, but to families, we need to include everyone. So the reason I'm running is to start a conversation on inclusion of who hasn't been in the conversation, who hasn't been at the PTA meetings, and who really should be there. And it's families. So I'm thankful for your time. I would have had better statements, but I was doing skip to my loo with my kids. So thank you.
We're not complaining. Corey Strozier.
Hey, as mentioned earlier, I'd like to thank obviously all of the candidates for being here, but thank you to the League of Women Voters for having us. I'm obviously in a position that's different than a few others here, but I think it's important to mention that, I feel like I can say this. I am Tacoma, right? I started my education in Tacoma at Lincoln High School as a sophomore. My first real job was at Lincoln High School in Tacoma. I then worked down at CAB. I've worked at Falls High School. I've worked all throughout the district, right? In all of our different classifications, hourly, certificated, classified, as a coach. So I really bring a perspective to the board that needs to be there, right? One who has had his foot in every different staffing level that we have. But the reality is this, with or without sitting on the school board, I would be working on behalf of students. Bottom line, this is my life's work, and this is what I will always continue to do. So thank you all for having us here, and thanks for your questions today.
Thank you. Enrique Leon.
Thanks. I'd like to thank, of course, the Women Voters, TV Tacoma. I'd also like to acknowledge that we're on the ancestral lands of the Puyallup Nations. Thank you to the Puyallup Nation for allowing us to be here. Really, I feel like I've come from a place of, as a Latinx male from Peru, immigrant, not speaking English, product of public schools in Maryland, not here, but my kids then attended public schools throughout Tacoma. And I've got one that graduated from Stadium, and my youngest one's going there next year. I understand education from that perspective. My whole family comes from education. My wife's been a lifelong math teacher and counselor now, and every one of my family's been a teacher or administrator at some point. So I understand from their perspective. And then also my work as a medical school residency educator, as an associate assistant professor of medicine, allows me to have the pedagogy to understand education. More importantly, I think I've got the proven time put in that I've done work to help our schools really exceed and do better with regard to equity for our BIPOC population. So I think we all do better when everyone improves. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to all the candidates and to you for watching. The candidates for Tacoma School District Board, position 5, are Bill Hannawalt and Elizabeth Von Bright. For position 4, Chelsea McElroy. For position 3, Corey Strozier. And for position 2, Enrique Leon and Sarah Hendricks, who was not here. Thank you to all who have spoken and answered questions. As there are 1 or 2 candidates in each race, they will not appear on the primary ballot, but will all be on the general election ballot on November 2nd. Thank you all.